Ambassador Jinwoo sat in his chair at the great round table inside the council chamber on Nexus Prime. The chamber was huge, bigger than 10 football fields put together, with a ceiling so high you could not see the top. The walls were made of crystal that changed colors when different aliens spoke. Each alien race had their own special color that would light up the walls. When they talked, Jinwoo had been coming to these meetings for 5 years now. He was tired of the same arguments every week. The aliens always complained about humans. They said humans were too violent, too loud, too different. They never said thank you for all the things humans did to help the galaxy. Today felt different, though. Jinwoo could sense something bad was coming. The way the other aliens looked at him when he walked in was not good. Their eyes, or whatever they used to see, were cold and angry. Even his friend Kala from the peaceful Aquarian race would not look at him. The meeting started like always. Chancellor Vrex stood up on his 4 legs. His blue skin was darker than usual, which meant he was very angry or very serious. Jinwoo had learned to read alien body language over the years. It was part of his job. Chancellor Vrex had 4 arms, and each one was holding a different data tablet. He looked like he was ready for war, not a peaceful meeting. His voice was deep and loud when he spoke through the universal translator that let all the different aliens understand each other. First, Chancellor Vrex talked about trade problems. He said human ships were causing too much trouble in the shipping lanes. Jinwoo knew this was not true. Human ships were the only ones brave enough to carry dangerous cargo through the most dangerous parts of space. The other aliens were too scared to do those jobs. Then Chancellor Vrex talked about the border wars. He said human peacekeepers were making things worse by taking sides. Jinwoo wanted to laugh, but he kept his face calm. Human peacekeepers were the only reason those wars had not destroyed entire star systems. The aliens had been fighting each other for thousands of years before humans even knew there were other planets. With Leaf So Young, his young assistant, was sitting next to him. She was new to this job and still believed that facts and truth mattered in these meetings. Jinwoo had learned long ago that politics was not about truth. It was about power and fear and making other people look bad so you could look good. So Young whispered to him that she had data to prove the Chancellor was wrong. Jinwoo shook his head slightly to tell her to stay quiet. There was no point in showing facts to people who did not want to see them. The Chancellor kept talking for almost an hour. He blamed humans for every problem in the galaxy. Bad weather on farm planets was somehow because of human pollution, even though human environmental engineers had cleaned up more toxic waste than any other species. Pirates attacking trade ships was because humans taught them to be violent, even though human security forces were the ones who caught most of the pirates. Jinwoo listened to lie after lie. He watched as hundreds of alien delegates nodded along with everything the Chancellor said. Not one of them spoke up to defend humans, not even the species that humans had saved from extinction, not even the ones whose planets humans had rebuilt after natural disasters. The worst part was that Jinwoo could see some of the aliens were not really believing what the Chancellor said, but they were too scared to disagree. They were cowards who would rather blame humans than stand up for what was right. Then came the moment that changed everything. Chancellor Vrex stopped reading from his tablets. He looked directly at Jinwoo with all 4 of his eyes. His voice got very quiet, which made it sound more dangerous than when he was shouting. Your species contributes nothing but violence and chaos, he said. The whole chamber became silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Even the air recycling system seemed to stop making noise. Jinwoo felt his heart start beating faster, but he kept his face calm. He had been trained for moments like this. He knew that showing emotion would make the aliens think they had won. Perhaps it would be better, the Chancellor continued, if humans simply disappeared from galactic affairs. The words hit Jinwoo like a physical blow. This was not just criticism. This was not just politics. This was them telling humans to leave the galaxy forever, to go away and never come back. Jinwoo looked around the chamber, waiting for anyone to say something to disagree with the Chancellor. Surely someone would speak up for humanity. The Aquarian delegate Kala made a gesture with her fins that meant she agreed with the Chancellor. Jinwoo felt sick. Kala had been his friend for years. Her people would have died from a plague if human doctors had not found a cure. The insect queen from the hive worlds clicked her mandibles in approval. Her species would still be trapped on their dying homeworld if human engineers had not built them ships to escape the reptilian ambassador from the frontier. Colonies flicked his tongue in what Jinwoo knew was their way of saying yes. His people would have been wiped out by space pirates if human military had not protected them one by one. Jinwoo looked at every alien in the chamber. Every single one of them was agreeing that humans should disappear from the galaxy. Not one voice spoke up for humanity, not one alien remembered all the times humans had saved their species, their planets, their children. So Young grabbed his arm, her fingernails digging into his sleeve. She was scared and angry and confused. She could not believe what was happening. Jinwoo patted her hand gently to calm her down, but inside he was feeling something he had never felt before. It was not anger, though. There was plenty of that. It was not sadness, though his heart was breaking. It was something colder and more dangerous. It was the feeling of being completely done with trying to please people who would never be pleased. Jinwoo stood up slowly. His chair made a small scraping sound on the crystal floor, but in the silence of the chamber it sounded like thunder. Every alien eye sensor and tentacle turned to look at him. He reached for his data tablet and picked it up. His movements were calm and deliberate, like he was performing a ceremony. Then he lifted it high above his head and slammed it down on the crystal table. The sound echoed through the entire chamber like a gunshot. Several alien delegates jumped back in fear. The crystal table showed a small crack where the tablet had hit it very well. Jinwoo said. His voice was quiet, but somehow everyone in the huge chamber could hear every word. If that is how the Galactic Council truly feels, then humanity accepts your suggestion. So Young stared at him with wide eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She could not believe what she was hearing. Jinwoo began putting his papers into his briefcase. His movements were neat and organized, like he was just finishing a normal day at the office. But everyone in the chamber could feel that something huge was happening, something that could not be taken back. He gathered his coffee cup, his writing pad, his backup translator device, and his personal photos. Everything that made his workspace feel like home. He was packing up 5 years of his life in this chamber. I mean exactly what I said, he told So Young when she tried to ask him a question. Pack everything, we are going home. The alien delegates were starting to whisper among themselves. Jinwoo could hear the confusion in their voices through the universal translator. They were asking each other what was happening. Some of them were starting to look worried, but it was too late for worry. Jinwoo walked toward the exit with So Young following behind him, carrying her own things. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Every alien watched them go, but no one tried to stop them. At the door, Jinwoo turned around one last time. He looked at the hundreds of aliens who had just told his entire species to disappear. His voice was still calm. When he spoke, you wanted us gone. Now you will have exactly what you asked for. Then he walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. For the last time within 1 hour, every human diplomatic mission in the galaxy received the same message from Jinwoo. Talks are over. Come home. The greatest exodus in galactic history had begun. Captain Dong Hyan was drinking his morning coffee in the command center of his massive cargo ship Soul Pride when the message came through. He had been expecting to start another normal day of hauling rare minerals from the asteroid belt to the trading stations scattered across 3 different star systems. The message was short, but it hit him like a punch to the stomach. All human ships return to Sol system immediately. No exceptions, no delays. Pack everything and come home. Dong Hyan read it 3 times to make sure he was not seeing things wrong. Then he called his crew to the main meeting room. His crew was a mix of humans and aliens who had been working together for almost 4 years. They were like family to him. The meeting room was crowded with his 20 crew members. The humans looked worried because they could see something was wrong on his face. The aliens looked curious but not concerned yet. They had no idea what was about to happen. Boys and girls, Dong Hyan said in his calm captain voice, we just got new orders from Earth Command. All humans are pulling out of galactic space immediately. His engineer was a lizard creature named Vex who had been with him since the beginning. Vex was good at his job and always asked smart questions. But Captain, what about our contracts? We have deliveries to make to 7 different planets. Cancelled. Dong Hyan said, all of them, every human company, every human worker, every human ship. We are all going home. The room erupted. In confused voices, his alien crew members started asking questions all at once. They wanted to know why this was happening. They wanted to know if they could still work for human companies. They wanted to know if this was just temporary. Dong Hyan held up his hand for silence. He had learned this gesture from his father, who had been a ship captain before him. When the captain raised his hand, everyone stopped talking and listened. "I do not know why this is happening," he said honestly. "I do not know if it is temporary. All I know is that every human in the galaxy has been ordered to come home, and we are going to follow those orders." His communications officer was a young human woman named Hyjin, who had just graduated from the Space Academy. 6 months ago, she looked like she was about to cry. "Captain," she said, "what about all the cargo we are carrying? What about the people waiting for their supplies?" "Good question," Dong Hyan said. "We are going to deliver everything we can on our way back to Earth, but any cargo that would take us away from the path home gets dropped off at the nearest station across the galaxy." The same scene was playing out on thousands of human ships. Captains were calling their crews together, managers were shutting down operations, engineers were packing up their equipment, doctors were saying goodbye to alien patients they had been treating for years. Dr. Jin was working in her laboratory on the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy when she got the message. She was the galaxy's leading expert on quantum fold technology. The machine she had built could bend space and time to make travel between galaxies faster than anyone had ever thought possible. Her alien research partners were excited because they were about to test a new breakthrough that could change everything. But when Dr. Hyjin saw the message, her face went white. "What is wrong?" asked her partner Dr. Zek, who was a tall, thin creature with too many arms. Dr. Hyjin had worked with him for 8 years, and they had become close friends. "I have to go home," she said simply. She started packing her personal belongings into boxes. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "But we are so close to finishing the project," Dr. Zek said. "We just need another month, and we will have solved the biggest problem in galactic transportation." Dr. Hyjin stopped packing and looked at her friend. "You wanted humans gone," she said quietly. "Now you have it." Dr. Zek did not understand what she meant, but he could see she was serious. He had never seen her like this before. She was always happy and excited about their work. Now she looked cold and distant. All across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. Human doctors were leaving hospitals. Human engineers were abandoning construction projects. Human teachers were walking out of schools. Human farmers were leaving their crops to rot in alien fields. Commander Yujin received the message while her peacekeeping fleet was stationed between two warring alien factions. The hegemony and the rebels had been fighting for 50 years, and human ships were the only thing keeping them from destroying each other completely. She called her captains to a secure communication channel. "Attention all ships," she said. "We have new orders from Earth Command. We are pulling out immediately." "But Commander," said Captain Leho from the destroyer, "Bizen, the ceasefire negotiations are scheduled for tomorrow. If we leave now, these two sides will start shooting at each other again." "I know," Commander Yujin said, "but our orders are clear. We leave now." "What about the civilians caught in the middle?" Captain Park asked. Her ship was positioned near a planet where millions of innocent people lived. If the war started again, those people would be in terrible danger. "That is not our problem anymore," Commander Yujin said. The words felt wrong coming out of her mouth, but she knew they were true. The aliens had made it clear that humans were not wanted. The civilians would have to find their own way to safety. The human ships began moving away from the war zone. Within hours, the two alien fleets were staring at each other across empty space with no peacekeepers between them. Both sides were confused and scared. They had gotten so used to having human ships keep them separated that they did not know what to do without them back. On Earth, President Park Min-ho was in his office deep underground beneath the city of New Seoul. He was surrounded by his top advisors and military leaders. They were all reading reports from across the galaxy. "Sir," said his defense minister, "every human settlement outside the Sol system is being evacuated. Every human business is shutting down. Every human ship is coming home." "How long until everyone is back?" President Park asked. "At current speed, about 6 months for the farthest settlement," said his space transport minister, "but we are telling everyone to move as fast as possible." President Park nodded. "Good," he said. "If they want us gone, then we will show them what gone really means." Activate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was the most secret plan in human history. It had been created 50 years ago as a last resort if humanity ever needed to completely withdraw from galactic civilization. Most people did not even know it existed. The plan was simple. Every human outside the Sol system would come home. Every piece of human technology would be destroyed or taken away, every human base would be abandoned, every human ally would be left to defend themselves, so said his science minister. Are you sure about this? Protocol 7 cannot be undone. Once we activate it, there is no going back. President Park looked around the room at his advisors. These were the smartest people in human government. They had helped build the greatest space civilization in history. But now they were going to tear it all down. They asked for this. He said they told us to disappear. Now they will learn what it means when humans really disappear. The orders went out immediately. Every human commander, every human manager, every human leader got the same message: bring everyone home. Destroy nothing but take everything. Leave no trace that we were ever there. The greatest exodus in galactic history was now in full swing. Millions of humans were packing up their lives and heading home to Earth. They left behind jobs and friends and homes they had built over decades, but they also left behind something else. They left behind all the invisible work that kept galactic civilization running, the maintenance jobs that no one else wanted to do, the dangerous missions that other species were too scared to attempt, the small acts of kindness and problem-solving that happened every day. The aliens who had cheered when humans were told to leave were about to discover what they had really lost. But by then, it would be too late to take back their words. The exodus had begun, and there was no stopping it now. 3 months after the humans left, everything started to fall apart, but nobody wanted to admit it yet. The aliens told themselves that small problems were normal, that things would get better once they figured out how to replace the human strayed. Administrator HFY was sitting in his office on Kepler Station, which was the biggest trading hub in the galaxy. His desk was covered with reports that made no sense to him. Shipping routes that had worked perfectly for hundreds of years were now failing every single day. His assistant brought him another stack of problem reports. Sir, she said, the Titan Express cargo line has completely stopped working. The Vega to Centauri route is blocked by pirates again, and the Andromeda supply chain has broken down complete. Like HFY looked at the numbers on his computer screen. Humans had only been running 30% of the shipping in the galaxy. How could losing 30% cause everything to collapse? What he did not understand was that humans had not just carried 30% of the cargo, they had carried the 30% that nobody else wanted to touch. The dangerous cargo that could explode if handled wrong, the medical supplies that needed to be kept at exact temperatures, the food that would spoil if delayed even one day. Human ships had also been the ones willing to travel through the most dangerous parts of space. The asteroid fields where one mistake could destroy your ship, the nebula clouds where your navigation systems stopped working, the border zones where pirates and rebels were always fighting. Now those dangerous routes were empty. Other alien species were too scared to risk their ships and crews. The cargo that used to flow smoothly through the galaxy was now stuck in warehouses and loading docks, but the shipping problems were just the beginning. On the frontier worlds where different alien species had been fighting for decades, the situation was getting much worse. General Zextar was commanding the hegemony forces against the rebel alliance like he had been doing for 20 years, but for the first time in his military career he was losing. The human peacekeepers who used to keep the two sides separated were gone. The human negotiators who arranged prisoner exchanges and ceasefire talks were gone. The human medical ships that treated wounded soldiers from both sides were gone. Without humans to maintain the buffer zones, the two armies were now fighting face to face. The battles were becoming more brutal than anything seen in 50 years. Entire planets were being destroyed because there was no one to stop the fighting. General Zextar was in his command bunker looking at battle reports that filled him with horror. In just 3 months, more soldiers had died than in the previous 5 years combined. Where are the humans? He shouted at his staff. Why will they not answer our calls? His intelligence officer was a nervous creature who always brought bad news. Sir, he said, all human communication channels have gone completely dark. It is like they have disappeared from the universe. The general threw his coffee cup against the wall in frustration. For decades he had complained about human peacekeepers interfering in military affairs. Now he would give anything to have them back. The worst problems were happening in places where no one expected them. Dr. Yuki was a scientist working on a research station orbiting a distant star. She and her team were studying black holes. to understand how the universe worked, but one day all their equipment stopped working. She called the technical support team, but they told her something that made her blood run cold. All the quantum computers in the galaxy were failing, and no one knew how to fix them. The quantum computers were the most advanced technology in galactic civilization. They controlled everything from space travel to weather prediction to medical diagnosis. They had been built using human technology, but most aliens had never bothered to learn how they actually worked. The humans who understood the technology were gone. They had not left behind instruction manuals or training programs. They had simply disappeared, taking all their knowledge with them. Without the quantum computers working properly, space travel became dangerous. Weather prediction stopped working on hundreds of planets. Medical equipment in hospitals started giving wrong diagnoses on the farming worlds that fed the galaxy. The environmental control systems were failing. Crops were dying because the machines that controlled temperature and humidity were breaking down. The human engineers who used to maintain them were no longer there. Merchant Captain Vexlo was trying to deliver food to a planet where people were starting to starve, but his ship kept getting lost in space. The navigation systems that used to work perfectly were now giving wrong directions. He finally made it to the planet, but when he landed, he found chaos. The spaceport was full of broken equipment that no one knew how to repair. Ships were stranded because their engines would not start. Cargo was rotting in warehouses because the refrigeration systems had failed. The aliens who ran the spaceport looked desperate. Captain Vexlo, they said, "Do you know any humans who could help us fix these machines, Captain?" Vexlo shook his head sadly. "I have been calling human engineers for weeks," he said, "but no one answers. It is like they have all vanished." Meanwhile, in the center of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was holding emergency meetings every day, but no one wanted to admit what was really happening. Chancellor Vrex was still telling everyone that the problems were temporary. "We managed the galaxy before humans arrived," he said in his speeches, "and we can manage it again. We just need time to adjust." But even as he spoke those words, Chancellor Vrex knew they were not true. In the 500 years since first contact with humans, the galaxy had changed completely. Humans had become so important to everything that removing them was like trying to remove the heart from a living body. Secretary General Yuki was quietly collecting data that terrified her. She was one of the few aliens who understood how serious the situation really was. Her computer reports showed that galactic civilization was collapsing faster than anyone imagined. Food production was down 40% because human farmers and engineers were gone. Medical research had stopped completely because human doctors and scientists were gone. Transportation networks were failing because human pilots and mechanics were gone. But the worst discovery was still to come. Late one night, Secretary General Yuki was working alone in her office when she found something that made her hands shake with fear. The ancient hyperspace beacon network that made faster than light travel possible across the galaxy had been secretly maintained by humans for centuries. The beacons were older than any living alien. They had been built by a long-dead civilization millions of years ago. Most aliens thought they were just natural phenomena that happened to be useful for navigation, but the truth was that the beacons required constant maintenance and adjustment to keep working properly. Human engineers had been quietly taking care of them for 500 years, making tiny repairs and adjustments that kept the entire galactic transportation system running. Now those engineers were gone, and the beacons were starting to fail. Secretary General Yuki realized with growing horror that within a year most of the galaxy would be cut off from each other. Ships would not be able to travel between star systems. Planets would be isolated and alone. Trade would stop completely. She opened her computer and began typing a message to the Sol system. It was the first time in months that any alien had tried to contact humans. The message was simple: "We need to talk," but when she tried to send it, her computer gave her an error message: "Communication with Sol system blocked. Target location does not exist." Secretary General Yuki stared at the screen in confusion. How could an entire star system not exist? She tried again and got the same message. It was like the human homeworld had been erased from the universe. She did not know that at that very moment something was happening in the Sol system that would change everything. The humans were not just hiding, they were preparing to disappear completely. The first cracks in galactic civilization were spreading faster than anyone had imagined, and the worst was yet to come. 6 months after the human exodus, the Galactic Council was in complete chaos. The Great Chamber, where alien delegates had once calmly discussed trade agreements and border disputes, was now filled with shouting, angry voices and desperate pleas. For help, Chancellor Vrex stood at the center podium trying to maintain order, but his forearms were shaking with stress. His blue skin had turned pale, and his eyes were darting nervously around the chamber. He had been the one to suggest that humans should disappear, and now everyone was blaming him for the disaster. The Mercantile Federation representative was a fat blob-like creature who made money from trading goods between different worlds. He was screaming so loudly that his translator was having trouble keeping up. The Kepler trade route has collapsed completely, he shouted. Our economy is dying. Every day we lose more credits than we used to make in a year. The Military Alliance delegate was a warrior species with sharp claws and armor-like skin. Without human peacekeepers, we cannot contain any conflicts, he said. The border wars have spread to 7 new systems. Entire planets are being destroyed. We need help. The scientific consortium speaker was a tall, thin alien with a big brain that pulsed with different colors when he was upset. Half our research stations are going dark, he said in a high-pitched voice. The quantum computers are failing, and no one knows how to fix them. We are losing thousands of years of scientific knowledge. Chancellor Vrex raised all 4 of his arms, trying to get everyone to stop shouting. But the chamber was too chaotic. Too many delegates were trying to talk at once. The noise was so loud that the crystal walls were vibrating and changing colors rapidly. Finally, Chancellor Vrex activated the emergency authority override. This was a special power that could only be used in times of extreme crisis. It sent out a neural dampening field that forced everyone in the chamber to be quiet. Enough, he bellowed using his deepest, most commanding voice. We are not children. We managed the galaxy before humans arrived, and we can manage it again. But even as he spoke those words, Chancellor Vrex could see that nobody believed him, including himself. The truth was that everything was falling apart much faster than anyone had predicted. The galaxy was like a giant machine with thousands of moving parts, and the humans had been the oil that kept all those parts working smoothly together. Secretary General Yuki was sitting in her office high above the council chamber. She was supposed to be the person who kept track of everything that happened in galactic government, but now she felt completely helpless. Her computer screens showed reports from across the galaxy, and every single report was bad food shortages on 60 planets, equipment failures on hundreds of space stations, medical emergencies with no doctors to help, transportation systems breaking down everywhere. But the worst news was about the hyperspace beacons. The ancient network that allowed ships to travel faster than light was failing much quicker than she had feared. She called up her most trusted technical advisor, Dr. Kexmar, who was an expert on space technology. How long before complete system failure? She asked him. Dr. Kexmar looked at his data with 6 different eyes before answering. At current rate of decay, 18 months until galactic civilization faces complete collapse. 18 months. Secretary General Yuki felt sick to her stomach. That was not enough time to train new engineers or build replacement systems or figure out how to maintain the ancient technology. She made a decision that would have seemed impossible a year ago. She opened her most secure communication channel and sent a message toward the Sol system. We need to talk. But the message came back with an error. Communication blocked. Target does not exist. How could an entire star system not exist? She tried different communication methods, radio signals, hyperspace transmissions, quantum entanglement communicators. Everything gave the same result. The Sol system was gone. Secretary General Yuki was not the only one trying to contact the humans. Desperate aliens across the galaxy were sending messages toward Earth, but no one was getting through. It was like humanity had been erased from the universe. Captain Vexlow was stranded on a planet where his ship had broken down. He needed human engineers to fix his engines, but he could not find any. The local repair shops had alien mechanics, but they just looked at his engine and shook their heads. We do not know how to fix human technology, they told him. You need to find a human engineer, but there were no human engineers anywhere. Captain Vexlow sent distress signals across the galaxy offering huge amounts of money for any human who could help him. But no one answered. On the agricultural worlds that fed billions of people, the situation was becoming desperate. The environmental control systems were failing and crops were dying. Entire harvests were being lost because the machines that controlled temperature and humidity were breaking down. Farm manager Tokve was watching his crops wither in the fields. He had been growing food for 40 years, but he had always depended on human engineers to maintain his equipment. Now those engineers were gone and he did not know how to fix anything himself. His workers were panicking because they could see that the food supply was failing. If the crops died, people would starve, but Tokve did not know what to do. He had sent messages to every human engineering company in the galaxy, but they were all empty. The human offices were locked up and abandoned. The human employees had vanished. Their communication systems were shut down. It was like they had never existed. In the hospitals across the galaxy, alien doctors were facing medical emergencies. They could not handle the advanced diagnostic equipment that had been built with human technology was failing. Medical computers were giving wrong information. Surgical robots were malfunctioning. Dr. Zextul was trying to save a patient who was dying from a rare disease, but the medical scanner that could diagnose the problem was broken. She had been trained to use the equipment, but she had never learned how to repair it. She called the human medical technology company that had installed the scanner, but the communication line was dead. She tried to contact human doctors who might know how to fix it, but no one answered. Her patient was getting worse every hour and Dr. Zextul was running out of options. She realized with growing horror that thousands of patients across the galaxy were probably dying because medical equipment was failing and no one knew how to fix it. The worst part was that many aliens were starting to blame each other for the crisis. The different species that had worked together for centuries were now fighting and arguing. The unity that had once made them feel superior to the chaotic humans was crumbling. The Vrexian hegemony was blaming the Merchant Federation for the economic collapse. The Merchant Federation was blaming the military alliance for not protecting trade routes. The military alliance was blaming the scientific consortium for not finding solutions fast enough. Everyone was pointing fingers at everyone else, but no one wanted. The response from humanity came not as words but as action. Every hyperspace beacon in the galaxy suddenly synchronized perfectly, displaying a single message in every known language simultaneously. You wanted us gone, we are gone. Do not contact the U.S. again. Then something happened that sent shockwaves through every civilization in the galaxy. The soul barrier activated. The entire Sol system, Earth, Mars, the asteroid mining stations, the orbital cities, everything vanished behind an energy field that made it completely undetectable. No radio signals, no hyperspace signatures, no trace that humanity had ever existed. It was as if someone had erased the human home system from the universe entirely. President Park Min-ho stood in the command center deep beneath New Seoul, watching as the barrier stabilized. Status report, he requested calmly. All human assets successfully evacuated to Seoul space, reported Admiral Kyung-soo. The barrier is holding perfectly. As far as the galaxy is concerned, we no longer exist, and our observation posts? Still active but completely hidden. We can see everything happening out there. They cannot see us. Through their hidden sensors, humanity watched as galactic civilization continued its death spiral. The Vrexian hegemony, once the galaxy's dominant military power, had fractured into 7 warring factions without human diplomats to negotiate their internal disputes. The great trade routes that had enriched countless worlds for millennia were now highways of piracy and chaos. Most telling of all, the alien races had begun turning on each other, blaming everyone except themselves for the crisis. The very unity that had once made them feel superior to their chaotic humans was crumbling without human mediators to smooth over their differences. Dr. Heijin, now working in a pristine laboratory on Luna, received regular reports from her AI monitoring systems scattered throughout the galaxy. The quantum fold networks are failing faster than predicted, she informed the Emergency Council. At this rate, they'll lose faster-than-light travel entirely within 8 months. President Park nodded solemnly. Then it's almost time for the final phase. Exactly 1 year after humanity's exodus, the Galactic Council sent a desperate transmission toward the Sol system, broadcasting on every frequency and using every form of communication they could devise. The message was simple. Please come back. We need you. There was no response. As far as anyone could tell, the Sol system remained empty, lifeless, as if humanity had simply vanished from existence. But behind the barrier, President Park and the Emergency Council were watching. Everything! They saw the chaos, the suffering, the complete breakdown of the civilization that had rejected them. They also saw something else, the first signs that some alien races were learning to work together out of desperation, finding solutions they had never bothered to seek while humans did the hard work for them. "It's time," Park announced to the assembly of human leaders, "but we do this on our terms." The soul barrier flickered and went transparent for exactly 60 seconds. In that minute, humanity broadcast a single message to the galaxy, to the Galactic Council and all member species. "You asked us to leave. We left. You told us we contributed nothing. We showed you what nothing looks like. Now you beg us to return. We will consider it, but not as we were before. If you want humanity back, you will meet our conditions. You have 72 hours. To respond, this offer will not be repeated." The response came in less than 12 hours. Every government, every faction, every species in the galaxy sent the same message: "Yes, anything, please come back." But when the barriers finally came down and human ships emerged from soul space, the beings who greeted the galaxy were different, harder, more confident. They had learned their true worth, and they would never again accept being treated as expendable. Ambassador Jin Wu, now bearing the new title of High Commissioner for Human Affairs, addressed the reconvened Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for millennia. "We are back, but we are not the same humans who left. You taught us what we were worth through your desperation. We will not forget that lesson, neither should you." The galaxy had begged and humanity had answered. But the balance of power had shifted forever, and everyone knew that the age of taking humans for granted was over.